Captain Lee Sumi walked into the massive conference hall with steady steps. Her black military uniform was crisp and clean. Her dark hair was pulled back in a perfect bun. Behind her walked something that made every alien in the room freeze. Barum was a Siberian tiger. His orange and black striped coat gleamed under the bright lights. He weighed over 300 kilograms of pure muscle and power. His amber eyes looked calm as he followed Sumi through the hall. Not one chain or collar held him. No cage surrounded him. He simply walked beside the human woman like an old friend. The aliens in the conference hall had never seen anything like this before. Whispers started immediately. "Is that creature loose?" asked a Velkan delegate. His green, scaly skin turned a darker shade of worry. "Impossible," said another alien. "Wild predators cannot be controlled." Sumi ignored the whispers. She had heard them all before. She walked to the front of the hall where a large holographic display waited for her. Barum followed, and then sat down beside the podium. His tail curled around his massive paws. He looked completely relaxed. The conference hall held over 200 delegates from 12 different alien species. The Velkans looked like giant lizards with sharp teeth. The Gray Collective appeared as tall, thin beings with large black eyes. The crystalline hive representatives were living crystals that hummed when they spoke. Each species had traveled here from across the galaxy for this important meeting. Ambassador Pak Do-yun sat with the human delegation near the front. He was an older man with gray hair and kind eyes. He had been working with aliens for over 20 years. Even he felt nervous watching the other delegates stare at Barum with fear and confusion. "Honored delegates," Sumi began. Her voice was strong and clear. "I am Captain Lee Sumi of the Earth Defense Force. I come before you today with a proposal." The holographic display lit up. Images of Earth appeared in the air above the conference table. Green forests covered rolling hills. Blue oceans stretched to the horizon. Animals of every kind moved through the pictures. Lions ran across grasslands. Eagles soared through mountain ranges. Whales sang in deep oceans. "The void breach crisis threatens all our worlds," Sumi continued. "Your advanced weapons have failed. Your artificial intelligence systems have been destroyed. Your hive minds have been broken apart by these strange entities." Several alien delegates shifted uncomfortably in their seats. They knew she spoke the truth. For 3 months, the void breach had been growing larger. Dark creatures poured out of the tear in space. Nothing they tried could stop them. "Humans offer a different solution," Sumi said. "We propose using Earth's animals to help fight this threat." The reaction was immediate and loud. "Ridiculous," shouted Commander Thexmore of the Velkan Empire. His red eyes glowed with anger. "Animals are primitive beasts driven only by hunger and fear." "Our analysis confirms this assessment," said the Gray Collective speaker. Its voice sounded like metal, scraping against stone. "Biological entities without technological enhancement cannot contribute to advanced warfare." The crystalline hive representative made a sound like breaking glass. When translated, it meant, "Chaos cannot be controlled. Wild things serve no purpose." In organized battle. Sumi listened to all the protests calmly. She had expected this reaction. When the noise finally died down, she continued her presentation. "Let me show you what we mean by partnership," she said. The holographic display changed. Now it showed human cities where animals lived alongside people. Police officers worked with trained dogs to find hidden dangers. Rescue teams used dolphins to save drowning swimmers. Mountain climbers trusted their horses to carry them safely through dangerous paths. "These are not controlled animals," Sumi explained. "They are willing partners. They choose to work with us." "Impossible," said a delegate from the Mechanic Union. His robotic voice buzzed with disbelief. "Lower life forms cannot make complex choices." Baram's ear twitched at the sound. The tiger's head turned slightly toward the speaking robot. For just a moment, His amber eyes focused on the mechanical being. Then he looked away as if the robot was not worth his attention. The small action sent a wave of unease through the alien delegates. They had seen intelligence in that brief glance, cold, calculating intelligence that evaluated and dismissed them. "Your creature shows aggressive behavior," said the Velkin commander. His hand moved toward his weapon. "No," Sumi replied calmly. "Bahram shows judgment. He can tell the difference between a real threat and empty words." She touched a control on her podium. The holographic display showed new images. Humans working with tigers in forests, scientists studying alongside whales in oceans, soldiers training with eagles in mountains. "Earth animals have abilities your technology cannot match," Sumi said. "A tiger can sense danger from kilometers away. An eagle can see targets that your best sensors miss. A dolphin can navigate through energy fields that destroy your computers." "Even if this is true," said the Gray Collective speaker, "how do you control such powerful creatures? What stops them from attacking you?" Sumi smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who knew a secret that others could not understand. "We do not control them," she said. "That is where you misunderstand everything about humans." She walked over to Bahram. The massive tiger looked up at her with calm, amber eyes. Without any command or signal, the tiger stood up. He walked to a control panel built into the side of the podium. Using one massive paw with surprising gentleness, he pressed a series of buttons. The holographic display changed to show detailed star maps of the Void Breach region. Battle damage reports scrolled past in neat rows. Strategic analysis appeared in floating windows around the map. The alien delegates sat in complete silence. A wild animal had just operated advanced technology, with more skill than some of their own technicians. "How?" whispered the crystalline hive representative. "Trust," Sumi answered simply. "Bahram knows I need this information. He helps me get it. I know he needs food and safety. I help him get those things. We both choose to work together because it makes us both stronger." She walked back to the podium while Bahram returned to his sitting position. "The Void Breach entities are not just energy and darkness," Sumi continued. "They are alive. They think and feel and fear. Your weapons and computers see them as targets to destroy. Our animal partners see them as living beings to understand." "This is madness," said Commander Thexmore. "You want us to trust our survival? To primitive beasts?" Bahram's head turned toward the Velkin commander again. This time his amber eyes stayed focused on the alien for several long seconds. The commander's hand moved away from his weapon. Something in that steady gaze made him nervous. "Not primitive," Sumi said. "Different. Your species developed technology to replace natural instincts. Humans learn to work with those instincts instead. That difference might save all our worlds." The conference hall remained quiet for long minutes. Finally, Ambassador Pak stood up. "Captain Sumi has presented our proposal," he said in his diplomatic voice. "Earth offers the service of human-animal teams to assist in closing the Void Breach. We ask only for the chance to try where others have failed." "Denied," said Commander Thexmore immediately. "The Velkin Empire will not risk our forces based on the tricks of pets." "The Gray Collective agrees," said their speaker. "Biological solutions lack reliability." One by one, the alien delegations rejected the human proposal. Only the small traitor coalition remained undecided. Sumi listened to each rejection without expression. When the last delegate had spoken, she gave a small nod. Immediately, Bahram stood up and walked toward the exit. The tiger moved with fluid grace between the rows of alien delegates. Several species pulled back in fear as the massive predator passed by, but Bahram paid them no attention at all. He walked straight to the door and sat down beside it. Then he looked back at Sumi. His amber eyes held a question. Every alien in the room understood what they were seeing. The tiger was asking permission to leave. He was waiting for a signal from his human partner. Sumi gathered her materials and walked toward the exit. When she reached Bahram, she placed her hand briefly on his head. The tiger rose and walked beside her out of the conference hall. The alien delegates sat in stunned silence long after the humans had gone. They had expected to see a wild animal, barely contained by human technology. Instead, they had witnessed something that challenged everything they believed about intelligence, control, and partnership. In the corridor outside, Ambassador Pak caught up with Captain Sumi and Bahram. "They will change their minds," he said quietly. "When their current methods fail again, they will remember what they saw here today." Sumi nodded. Beside her, Bahram's tail swished once. The tiger knew something the aliens had not yet learned. They. Wildest animals did not defy control. They simply chose their own partners. 3 weeks after the failed presentation, Captain Lee Sumi stood on the bridge of the human vessel New Soul. Through the main viewing screen, she could see the combined galactic fleet spread across space like a metal constellation. Over 400 ships from 12 different species had gathered to face the growing threat. The void breach hung in space ahead of them like a wound in reality itself. It was a black tear that seemed to swallow light and hope equally. Strange purple energy crackled around its edges. Every few minutes, dark shapes would emerge from the breach and drift toward the nearest planets. "Status report," Sumi ordered. Lieutenant Kim Ji-won looked up from her science station. Her companion, Nala, a gray wolf with intelligent yellow eyes, lay beside her chair. The wolf's ears were pressed flat against her head. She did not like what her enhanced senses were telling her. "The Velkan attack fleet tried another assault this morning," Ji-won reported. 23 dreadnoughts armed with plasma cannons. The void entities absorbed their energy weapons and turned the power against them. 7 ships were destroyed. Sumi nodded grimly. She had watched the battle recordings. The void entities looked like living shadows with too many teeth. When plasma bolts hit them, they grew larger and stronger instead of being destroyed. "What about the Gray Collective?" she asked. "Their AI constructs lasted 18 minutes, said Communications Officer Park Yuna. Her dolphin partner Bada swam in a specially designed tank built into the bridge. The dolphin's sonar clicks helped translate alien communications that human technology could not decode. The void entities seemed to scramble artificial intelligence somehow. The constructs started attacking each other instead of the enemy. And the crystalline hive?" "Complete failure," Yuna replied sadly. "The hive-mind connection broke apart as soon as the entities came near. Without their mental link, individual crystalline beings cannot function. They just float in space like pretty rocks." Sumi walked over to the tactical display. Red markers showed where Allied ships had been destroyed. Yellow markers indicated damaged vessels limping back to the fleet. Green markers were becoming fewer each day. Beside her, Bahram stretched out on the specially reinforced deck plating. The tiger's amber eyes watched the display with interest. He could not read the symbols, but he understood the colors meant danger. "Captain," called pilot Minsu from his station near the flight deck entrance. His golden eagle Hanul perched on a specially designed stand beside him. "The Velkan commander is requesting another strategy meeting. He wants to try coordinated bombardment with the mechanic Union rail guns." "Tell him we will attend," Sumi said. She already knew the meeting would be another waste of time. The aliens kept trying the same failed approaches over and over. More weapons, bigger explosions, better technology. None of them wanted to admit that their methods were not working. 2 hours later, the strategy meeting was exactly as boring as Sumi had expected. Commander Thexmore stood at the head of the conference table, his green scales darker than usual with frustration. "We need concentrated firepower," he insisted for the 10th time. If we focus all our energy weapons on a single point, we can punch through the breach and destroy whatever is creating these entities. Analysis indicates 73.2% probability of failure, said the Gray Collective representative. Previous attempts using similar tactics resulted in entity multiplication rather than elimination. Then we use different weapons, growled Thexmore. Nuclear devices, antimatter warheads, planet crackers if necessary. The crystalline hive representative made their broken glass sound that meant disagreement. Escalation will only feed the entities more energy. They grow stronger with each attack. Sumi listened to the same arguments she had heard a dozen times before. Her patience was wearing thin. In the corner of the meeting room, Bahram lay with his head on his paws. Even the tiger looked bored. Perhaps, Sumi said finally, we should consider that we are fighting this enemy the wrong way. The room went quiet. Commander Thexmore turned his red eyes toward her. Humans were not invited to participate in tactical planning, he said coldly. Your proposal was rejected by this council. Your current tactics are not working, Sumi pointed out. We have lost over 60 ships in 3 weeks. The breach is growing larger. The entities are spreading to more systems every day. What do you propose? Asked a delegate from the Trader Coalition. They were one of the smaller species, but they had good sense about practical matters. Sumi stood up and activated her personal holoprojector. Images appeared showing the void entities in detail. Unlike the alien recordings that focused on weapons and technology, these images showed behavior patterns. Look at how they move, she said. They do not attack randomly. They follow patterns. They respond to certain sounds and energies. They avoid others. Irrelevant, said Commander Thexmore. We are here to destroy them, not study them. What if destruction is not the answer? Sumi asked. What if these entities are not invaders but refugees? The suggestion caused an uproar. Aliens around the table began arguing in multiple languages. Translators worked overtime to keep up with all the shouting. Bahram raised his head and looked at Sumi. The tiger understood that his partner was trying to explain something important to the other beings. He stood up and walked over to stand beside her chair. His presence helped calm Sumi's frustration. You have no evidence for this theory, said the Gray Collective speaker when the noise died down. Actually, we do, said Kim Ji-won. She had entered the meeting room quietly, followed by her wolf companion, Nala. Captain, we have been monitoring the entities with our animal partners. The results are very interesting. Ji-won activated her own holoprojector. New images appeared showing void entities interacting with each other. The recordings were clearer than anything the alien ships had captured. Nala can detect electromagnetic patterns that your sensors miss, Ji-won explained. These entities communicate with each other using frequencies below normal detection ranges. They are not attacking randomly. They are searching for something. Searching for what? Asked the Trader Coalition delegate. We think they are looking for a way home, Ji-won replied. The patterns suggest distress calls, not war cries. Commander Thexmore slammed his clawed hand on the table. This is nonsense. Even if these creatures are lost, they are still destroying our colonies. They must be eliminated. Eliminated targets. Often fight harder when cornered, said a new voice from the doorway. Commander Yoon Ha-jin entered the meeting room with his brown bear companion Dubu following behind. Sometimes the best way to win a fight is to help your enemy find what they really want. The bear's presence made several alien delegates nervous. Dubu was even larger than Bahram, with thick brown fur and small dark eyes that missed nothing. Unlike the aliens, he was not afraid of the void entities. Bears were practical creatures. If something was not trying to eat him, he saw no reason to be hostile. Fascinating theories, said the crystalline hive representative. But how do you propose testing them? Our standard communication methods have failed completely. Not all. Communication requires technology, Ha-jin replied. Sometimes understanding comes through behavior rather than words. He gestured to the animals in the room. Nala detected the electromagnetic patterns by following her hunting instincts. She tracked the entities like prey until she understood their movement. Hanul can see details across vast distances that your cameras cannot capture. Bada navigates through energy fields that destroy your computers. And what has Dubu discovered? Asked Sumi. Hajin smiled and placed his hand on the bear's massive shoulder. Dubu has been sleeping well every night since we arrived. He is not worried about the void entities at all. Bears have excellent instincts for detecting real threats versus false ones. You are saying the entities are not dangerous? Asked the Trader Coalition delegate. I am saying they may not be intentionally dangerous, Hajin corrected. A lost child can cause great damage while trying to find its way home. But the solution is not to hurt the child. The solution is to help it find its family. The meeting room fell silent. The alien delegates looked at each other with uncertainty. Everything they believed about warfare and enemy engagement was being challenged by these strange humans and their animal partners. Even if you are correct, said Commander Thexmore finally, how do you communicate with beings made of living, shadow and energy? Your animals cannot speak to them. Sumi looked down at Barum. The tiger was watching the holographic displays with great interest. His amber eyes tracked the movement patterns of the void entities as if he was studying potential prey, or perhaps potential packmates. Communication is not always about words, she said. Sometimes it is about showing rather than telling, about demonstrating peaceful intentions instead of declaring them. You want to approach the breach without weapons? Asked the Gray Collective speaker. This plan has a 94.7% probability of resulting in the destruction of any vessel that attempts it. Perhaps, Sumi agreed. But your weapons have a 100% probability of making the situation worse. At some point, we have to try a different approach. She looked around the table at the assembled aliens. Give us one chance, one ship, one attempt to make contact rather than war. Absolutely not, said Commander Thexmore. I will not risk any part of this fleet on the theories of humans and their pets. Barum's ear twitched at the word pets. His tail swished once in what might have been amusement. The tiger knew exactly what he was. He also knew what the green-scaled alien was not. The meeting ended with the same result as always. The aliens would continue their failed attacks. The void entities would continue growing stronger. And somewhere in the dark, Tyr. In space, lost beings would continue searching for a way home that no one was trying to help them find. As the delegates filed out of the meeting room, Sumi remained seated. Her animal companions gathered around her chair, Baram on one side with Nala, Hanil, and Dubu nearby. Each creature looked calm and confident despite the dire situation. They will change their minds eventually, said Commander Hajin quietly. When they run out of other options. Sumi nodded, but she wondered if that change would come too late. Every day the breach grew larger. Every day more colonies were evacuated. Every day the galaxy moved closer to a disaster that conventional thinking could not prevent. In the distance, the void breach pulsed with dark energy. Inside that tear in space, shadow beings continued their desperate search while the galaxy prepared for another failed attack. The human vessel New Sol was unlike any ship in the galactic fleet. While alien vessels were built for efficiency and control, the New Sol was designed for cooperation and comfort. Wide corridors allowed large animals to move freely. Special chambers held environments from Earth where different species could feel at home. Commander Yun Hajin stood in the observation deck with a group of confused alien delegates. They had requested this visit after watching human-animal teams work together for 2 weeks. The aliens could not understand what they were seeing. Through the transparent walls, Earth creatures moved throughout the ship. Tigers walked patrol routes alongside human security officers. Eagles flew through vast open chambers that served as both exercise areas and reconnaissance centers. In the lower levels, massive aquarium sections allowed whales and dolphins to swim while analyzing sonar data from across the fleet. "This is impossible," said Sub-Commander Vextar of the Velkan Empire. His green scales were pale with confusion. "How do you control so many dangerous predators in such a small space?" Hajin smiled and gestured to his companion Dubu. The massive brown bear was lying on the specially reinforced deck, peacefully watching the stars through the observation windows. At Hajin's gesture, Dubu stood and walked over to a control panel. "We do not control them," Hajin explained. "Watch carefully." Using his large paws with surprising gentleness, Dubu began operating the environmental controls. The bear adjusted temperature, humidity, and air pressure to create optimal conditions for both human and alien comfort. His movements were precise and purposeful. "Impossible," whispered the Gray Collective observer. "Bears are primitive creatures driven only by basic needs." "Dubu graduated from our animal partnership program with honors," said Dr. Lee So-min as she joined the group. She was the ship's animal behaviorist, a small woman with kind eyes and graying hair. "He understands complex systems better than most of our human technicians." She walked over to Dubu and placed her hand on his thick fur. The bear continued, working the controls while she spoke. "For thousands of years, humans and animals lived together on Earth," Dr. So-min explained. "We learned to read each other's body language, to understand intentions, to share goals. This relationship is not about dominance, it is about trust." "Trust cannot be programmed," said the mechanic union representative. His robotic voice buzzed with skepticism. "Biological entities follow genetic imperatives, not logical cooperation." As if responding to the challenge, Dubu finished his work at the control panel and walked over to the robot. The bear sat down directly in front of the mechanical being and extended one massive paw. It was clearly an invitation to shake hands. The robot stared at the offered paw for several seconds. Finally, he reached out with his own mechanical hand and briefly touched Dubu's paw. The bear's mouth opened in what humans recognized as a smile. "How does he know to do that?" asked Sub-Commander Vexistar. "Dubu reads body language and emotional states," Dr. So-min replied. "He recognized that our robot friend was feeling uncertain and offered reassurance. This is not programming, this is empathy." The alien delegates looked at each other with growing amazement. Everything they knew about animal behavior was being challenged by what they observed. Alarm sirens suddenly filled the observation deck. Emergency lights flashed red throughout the ship. Commander Hajin quickly activated the nearest communication panel. "Bridge to Commander Hajin," came Captain Sumi's voice. "We have multiple void entity signatures approaching. The Velkan fleet is preparing for another attack." "We will observe from here," Hajin replied. "Keep us informed." Through the observation windows, they could see the massive Velkan dreadnoughts moving into attack formation. Plasma cannons charged with deadly energy. Missile tubes loaded with their most powerful warheads. "Perhaps this time we will succeed," said Sub-Commander Vextar hopefully. The attack began with tremendous fury. Hundreds of plasma bolts streaked through space toward the approaching void entities. Nuclear missiles followed in a carefully coordinated barrage. For a moment, it seemed like the alien fleet might finally achieve victory. Then the void entities did what they always did. They absorbed the energy from every weapon that hit them. The plasma bolts made them larger and stronger. The nuclear explosions fed them power beyond measure. Within minutes, the attacking entities had grown to twice their original size. Worse, they began to reproduce. Each entity that absorbed enough energy split into 2 new entities. The dozen creatures that had emerged from the breach became 2 dozen, then 4 dozen. "Retreat!" ordered Commander Thexmore over the fleet communications. "All ships fall back to defensive positions." But it was too late for some vessels. 3 Velkan cruisers had moved too close to the entities during the attack. Now they were surrounded by hungry shadows that fed on their ship's power systems. "We have to help them," said Sub-Commander Vextar. His military pride warred with his fear. "Your weapons will only make the situation worse," Hajin pointed out gently. "But perhaps there is another way." He activated the ship's internal communication system. "All animal partners to stations, prepare for rescue operations." Throughout the new Sol, humans and animals began working together with practiced efficiency. In the fighter bay, pilots climbed into specially modified craft while their eagle and hawk companions took positions in sensor pods. The bird's incredible vision would guide the rescue ships through dangers that instruments could not detect. Kim Ji-won arrived on the observation deck with her wolf companion Nala. The wolf's ears were alert and focused despite the chaos outside. "Nala is tracking the electromagnetic patterns of the void entities," Ji-won reported. "She says they are confused and frightened. The weapons attacks have disrupted their ability to navigate." "Frightened?" asked the Gray Collective observer. "These creatures show fear?" "All living beings show fear when they are lost and hurt," said Dr. Somin. "The question is whether we respond to that fear with more violence or with understanding." On the main display, they watched as human rescue ships approached the trapped Velkin vessels. Instead of using weapons, the human craft moved slowly and carefully. Their animal partners guided them through safe paths between the void entities. Something remarkable happened. The shadow creatures stopped attacking. Instead, they seemed curious about these new ships that showed no aggression. Some entities even moved aside to create clear paths for the rescue operations. "How are they doing that?" Sub-Commander Vextar whispered. "Body language," Hajin replied. "Even beings made of energy and shadow have ways of communicating intent. Our animal partners can read those signals and respond appropriately." The rescue took 2 hours. Human ships carefully extracted the crews from all 3 damaged Velkin vessels without firing a single shot. The void entities watched the entire operation with what could only be described as interest rather than hostility. When the rescue was complete, the entities gradually drifted back toward the void breach. They did not attack any other ships. They simply left. The observation deck was completely silent. The alien delegates stared at the display screens with expressions of total confusion. "They let you rescue our people," Sub-Commander Vextar said finally. "Why?" "Because we showed them we were not a threat," Hajin answered. "We approached with peaceful intentions and respectful behavior. They responded in kind." "But they are monsters," protested the Mechanic Union representative. "Creatures of destruction and chaos." Dubu walked over to the robot and gently nudged his mechanical arm. When the robot looked down, the bear pointed with his nose toward the display screen. On the screen, enhanced recordings showed the void entities during the rescue operation. The creatures had not been randomly destructive. They had carefully avoided damaging any ship that showed peaceful behavior. They had actually helped guide some rescue ships around dangerous energy currents. Their actions showed intelligence and consideration. "Perhaps," said Dr. Somin quietly, "we have been wrong about what these creatures really are." "You mean they are not invaders?" asked Sub-Commander Vextar. "I mean they might be refugees," Somin replied. "Lost beings from another dimension who are just trying to find their way home." The implications of this possibility hung in the air like a heavy weight. If the void entities were not enemies but victims, then every attack against them was not defense, but cruelty. "How can we know for certain?" asked the Gray Collective observer. Hajin looked around at the alien delegates. These beings represented some of the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy. They had technology that could reshape planets and intelligence that could solve complex mathematical problems. But they had missed something that Earth's animals understood instinctively. "There is only one way to find out," he said. "We have to try to communicate with them directly." "Impossible," said Sub-Commander Vextar immediately. "They are too dangerous to approach." "Are they?" Hajin asked. Or have we made dangerous by treating them enemies from the beginning? He gestured to Dubu, who was still standing patiently beside the robot delegate. When Dubu first met our mechanical friend here, he could have seen him as a threat. A strange being made of metal and circuits that does not smell or move like any living creature. Instead, Dubu chose to offer friendship. Yeah, the robot looked down at the bear with what M. The next void entity attack came at dawn, ship time. Captain Lee Sumi stood on the bridge of the New Sol, watching as 47 shadow creatures emerged from the breach. They moved through space like living smoke, their forms shifting and changing as they approached the galactic fleet. "All ships to battle stations," ordered Commander Thexmore over the fleet communications. "Prepare for coordinated assault." Sumi watched the alien vessels move into their standard attack formation. The same formation they had used in every previous battle, the same formation that had failed every time. "Captain," said Communications Officer Park Yuna. Her dolphin companion Bada was clicking rapidly in her tank, analyzing sonar patterns that human ears could not detect. "Bada says the void entities are moving differently this time. They seem more organized." "Organized how?" Sumi asked. "They are staying together in family groups," Yuna replied, translating Bada's complex sonar language. "3 large entities, with several smaller ones following each group, like parents protecting their children." Sumi felt a chill run down her spine. If the entities were traveling in family units, that supported the theory that they were refugees rather than invaders. No military force would bring children into battle. The alien fleet opened fire with everything they had. Plasma cannons erupted in brilliant flashes. Railguns fired projectiles at incredible speeds. Energy weapons created a light show that could be seen from hundreds of kilometers away. As always, the void entities absorbed every attack. They grew larger and stronger with each hit. But this time, something different happened. The larger entities positioned themselves between the weapons fire and the smaller ones. They were using their own bodies as shields to protect the younger creatures from harm. "By the ancestors," whispered Lieutenant Kim Ji-won. Her wolf companion Nala whined softly as she sensed the distress of the shadow beings. "They are protecting their families." The battle continued for 20 minutes of futile destruction. Alien ships poured firepower into the void entities while achieving nothing except making their enemies stronger. Finally, 3 crystalline vessels and 1 gray collective cruiser suffered critical damage when the entities turned their absorbed energy back against the attackers. "All ships retreat," commanded Thexmore reluctantly. "Fall back to minimum safe distance." As the alien fleet withdrew, Sumi made a decision that would change everything. "Communications. Contact Commander Thexmore," she ordered. "Yes, Captain," replied Yuna. When the Velkin commander's angry face appeared on the main screen, Sumi spoke calmly despite his obvious fury. "Commander, request permission to attempt a rescue of the damaged ships." "Denied," Thexmore snapped immediately. "I will not risk additional vessels on human foolishness." "With respect, Commander, your current approach is not working. We have lost 19 ships in 3 weeks while the enemy grows stronger. Perhaps it is time to try something different." "I said denied, human." Sumi nodded politely. "Understood." "Commander, New Sol out." She turned to her bridge crew. Every human and animal partner was looking at her expectantly. "Helm, set course for the damaged vessels," she ordered. "Captain," said her tactical officer nervously. "The commander specifically denied permission." "The commander denied permission to risk additional vessels," Sumi corrected. "We are not risking our vessel. We are using it." Pilot O Minsu looked up from his station where his golden eagle Hanul perched watchfully. "Captain, we are 1 ship against 47 void entities. What can we possibly accomplish?" "We can try to save lives," Sumi replied simply. "Sometimes that is enough." The new Soul broke away from the retreating fleet and headed directly toward the void entities. On the bridge, Barum stood beside Sumi's command chair. The tiger's amber eyes were calm and confident. He trusted his partner's judgment completely. As they approached the area where the damaged ships drifted helplessly, the void entities began to converge on the new Soul. Shadow forms that had grown massive from absorbing weapons fire now surrounded the single human vessel. "All stop," Sumi ordered. "Maintain position and power down all weapon systems." "Captain?" asked the tactical officer in confusion. "You heard me. Power down weapons. We are not here to fight." Throughout the ship, human-animal teams prepared for the most dangerous mission of their lives. In the fighter bay, pilots and their bird companions climbed into rescue craft. In the engineering sections, teams with bear and wolf partners prepared emergency repair equipment. "Captain," reported Ji-won from her science station, "the void entities have stopped advancing. They are maintaining distance, but not attacking." "Nala's assessment?" "She says they are curious. They have never encountered a ship that approaches without weapons active." Sumi nodded. "Launch rescue craft. All teams maintain peaceful posture. No aggressive actions of any kind." The first rescue ship left the new Soul and approached the nearest damaged vessel, a crystalline hive transport. The void entities watched with apparent interest as the human craft moved slowly and carefully through the debris field. Pilot Choi De-hyun flew the rescue ship with his Falcon companion Kakashi, providing navigation guidance. The bird's incredible vision could see details that sensors missed, guiding them safely around energy discharges and floating wreckage. "Contact established with crystalline survivors," Dae-hyun reported over the communications system. "Beginning evacuation procedures." The void entities drifted closer to observe the rescue operation. Instead of attacking, they seemed fascinated by the cooperation between humans and their animal partners. Some of the shadow creatures began to mimic the movements of the rescue craft, as if trying to understand their behavior. Second rescue. "Ship launching," reported the flight controller. The rescue continued for over an hour. Human teams extracted survivors from all 4 damaged vessels, while the void entities watched peacefully. The shadow beings even moved aside to create clear paths for the rescue craft. During the operations, something remarkable happened. The smallest void entities, the ones that had been protected by the larger creatures during the battle, began to approach the rescue ships directly. "Captain," called Yuna excitedly, "Bada is detecting communication attempts from the young entities. They are trying to make contact using sound frequencies." "Can we respond?" Sumi asked. "Working on it," Yuna replied. She began working with her dolphin partner to create sonar patterns that might be understandable to the shadow beings. The first successful communication was simple. Bada created a series of clicks that seemed to mean hello or peaceful greeting. One of the young void entities responded with a similar pattern of energy pulses. "We have contact," Yuna announced with wonder in her voice. Over the next 30 minutes, while rescue operations continued, the human-animal teams established basic communication with several young void entities. The conversations were simple, but they revealed something that changed everything. The void entities were not from this dimension. They had been accidentally pulled through the breach during some kind of cosmic event. They were lost, frightened, and unable to find their way home. "They are refugees," Sumi said quietly when Yuna finished translating the communications. "Just as we suspected. The larger entities are the adults trying to protect their young," Ji-won added. "They attack our ships because they see us as threats to their families. And every time we shoot at them, we prove that we are threats." Finished Pilot Minsu. The rescue operations completed successfully. All survivors had been evacuated from the damaged ships. More importantly, first contact had been established with the void entities through peaceful means. As the human rescue ships returned to the new Soul, the void entities followed at a respectful distance. They were no longer threatening enemies, but curious observers trying to understand these strange beings who offered help instead of violence. "Captain," reported the communications officer, "we are receiving an angry transmission from Commander Thexmore." "I can imagine," Sumi replied. "Put him through." The Velkin commander's face appeared on the main screen, his red eyes blazing with fury. "Captain Sumi, you directly disobeyed my orders. You risked your ship and crew on a foolish rescue mission. We saved 43 lives," Sumi replied calmly. "All survivors have been successfully evacuated." "That is not the point. You violated military protocol and put the entire fleet at risk." "Commander, with respect, we discovered something important during the rescue operation. The void entities are not invaders. They are refugees who have been accidentally transported to our dimension. They are trying to find a way home." Thexmore's expression changed from anger to disbelief. "Impossible. These creatures have destroyed dozens of ships." "They destroyed ships that attacked them first," Sumi corrected. "During our rescue operation, they showed only curiosity and peaceful behavior. Some of the younger entities even attempted communication." "You are telling me these monsters can talk?" "I am telling you these beings can think and feel and fear just like any other intelligent species. They are not monsters, Commander. They are victims of circumstances beyond their control." The communication channel was quiet for several long seconds. Finally, Thexmore spoke in a voice that mixed confusion with reluctant interest. "Prove it," he said. Sumi looked around her bridge at the human and animal teams that had risked everything to save alien lives and establish peaceful contact with misunderstood beings. "Give us the chance," she replied, "and we will." The main screen switched off, leaving the bridge in relative quiet. Outside the viewports, the void entities continued to follow the new soul at a respectful distance. They were no longer enemies waiting to attack, but lost travelers hoping for guidance home. For the first time since the crisis began, there was hope that the solution might not require any more violence. It might require something much more difficult but ultimately more rewarding. It might require compassion. 2 days after the successful rescue mission, Captain Lee Sumi stood before the assembled fleet commanders once again. This time, the meeting was different. The alien leaders sat quietly, their usual arrogance replaced by uncertainty and grudging curiosity. "The void entities have not attacked any ship in 48 hours, reported Commander Thexmore. His green scales showed a lighter shade that indicated confusion among his species. "Our intelligence cannot explain this change in behavior." "Perhaps," suggested Sumi, "they were never the real problem." She activated her holoprojector and showed recordings from the rescue mission. The images clearly displayed void entities, moving aside to help human ships, young shadow beings attempting communication, and adult creatures protecting their families. "These recordings show intelligent behavior," admitted the Gray Collective representative. "Calculated cooperation rather than random destruction." "More than that," said Dr. Lee Solman as she joined the presentation. "Our animal partners have been communicating with the entities continuously. We have learned much about their situation." She gestured to Kim Jiwon, who stood with her wolf companion Nala beside the conference table. "Tell them what Nala discovered," Somin requested. Jiwon looked nervous speaking to so many high-ranking aliens, but Nala's presence gave her confidence. "The void entities call themselves the Wandering Folk," she began. "They come from a dimension where energy and matter exist differently than in our reality. 3 months ago, their home dimension suffered what they call the Great Tearing." "What caused this event?" asked the Crystalline Hive representative. "They do not know," Jiwon replied. "Something created massive dimensional rifts that scattered their people across multiple realities. The group we have encountered is just one family cluster that was pulled into our dimension through the breach." "How many of their people are still lost?" asked a Traitor Coalition delegate. "Thousands," Jiwon answered quietly. "Maybe tens of thousands, all searching for a way home." The conference room fell silent as the implications became clear. The void entities were not an invasion force, but a refugee crisis on a scale the galaxy had never imagined. "What do they want from us?" asked Commander Thexmore. "Safe passage," replied Sumi. "They want to find other dimensional rifts that might lead back to their home reality. They also want to rescue other wandering folk who are trapped in places they cannot reach alone. And if we help them, they will share their knowledge of dimensional science," Sumi said. "The wandering folk understand space-time manipulation in ways that could advance our technology by centuries." The alien commanders looked at each other with sudden interest. Advanced dimensional science was worth more than entire star systems. "What would this cooperation require?" asked the Gray Collective representative. "First, we must stop shooting at them," Sumi replied. "Every attack makes them stronger but also more frightened and desperate. Second, we need to approach the main breach with peaceful intentions to make contact with the larger group." "Approaching the breach directly is suicide," protested Commander Thexmore. "The energy levels alone would destroy any ship." "Not if we have guides," said Commander Yoon Hajin as he entered the conference room with his bear companion Dubu. "The wandering folk know how to navigate the dimensional current safely. They can teach us." "You are proposing a joint mission?" asked the Crystalline Hive representative. "We are proposing the most important mission in galactic history," Sumi replied. "The chance to solve the refugee crisis while gaining knowledge that could benefit all our species." The debate that followed lasted for hours. Some commanders remained skeptical, fearing that cooperation with the void entities was too dangerous. Others worried about the political implications of admitting they had been wrong about the nature of the threat. Finally, the Traitor Coalition delegate asked the question that mattered most. "Captain Sumi, what guarantee do we have that these entities can be trusted?" Sumi looked around the room at the assembled alien leaders. These beings commanded fleets that could destroy planets and technologies that could reshape reality itself. But they had all missed something that Earth's animals understood instinctively. "The same guarantee that my tiger gives me every day," she replied. "The guarantee of mutual respect, shared goals, and demonstrated good faith." She gestured to Bahram, who had been lying quietly beside her chair throughout the meeting. The massive tiger stood and walked over to Commander Thexmore's position at the table. The Velkin commander tensed as the predator approached. His hand moved instinctively toward his sidearm. But Bahram simply sat down in front of the alien and extended one large paw in the same gesture of friendship that Dubu had offered earlier. Thexmore stared at the offered paw for several seconds. Around the table, other alien commanders watched with fascination as the most aggressive species in the galaxy was offered a gesture of peace by one of Earth's most dangerous predators. Slowly, carefully, the Velkin commander reached out and briefly touched Bahram's paw with his clawed hand. "The tiger shows no fear," Thexmore said quietly. "Even though I could kill him, he offers trust." "That is the foundation of all cooperation," Sumi replied. "Trust given freely, earned through actions, and maintained through mutual benefit." "Very well," said Commander Thexmore after a long pause. "The Velkin Empire will support this joint mission, but we proceed with caution and maintain the ability to withdraw if the situation becomes dangerous." One by one, the other alien commanders agreed to the plan. Some remained skeptical, but all recognized that their current approach was failing while the human method had achieved unprecedented success. 3 days later, the joint expedition approached the Void Breach. The fleet consisted of one vessel, from each major species, with the human ship New Sol taking the lead position. Most importantly, 12 young Void entities served as guides, swimming through space around the ships like dolphins escorting boats. "Dimensional readings are off. The charts," reported Kim Ji-won from her science station. Nala lay beside her chair with ears alert, sensing energies that instruments could not detect. "The fabric of space-time is completely unstable in this region. Guide entities are signaling course corrections," reported Park Yuna. Her dolphin, companion Bada, was maintaining constant communication with the young wandering folk through complex sonar patterns. They want us to follow a specific path through the energy currents. Captain Sumi watched the main display as their void entity guides led the fleet through passages between massive energy storms. Space itself seemed to twist and bend around them. Without the guides, any ship that entered this region would have been torn apart instantly. "How do they navigate through this chaos?" asked Commander Thexmore over the fleet communications. "They sense dimensional currents the way birds sense air currents," replied Dr. Soman. "It is instinctive navigation based on abilities we cannot fully understand." As they penetrated deeper into the unstable region around the breach, more void entities began to appear. These were not the lost refugees they had encountered before. These were the main population of wandering folk who had been trapped near the dimensional rift for months. "Contact established with the entity leadership," reported Yuna. "They are requesting direct communication with our fleet commanders." What followed was the first formal diplomatic meeting between the galaxy and beings from another dimension. The wandering folk spoke through harmonious energy patterns that Bada translated into understandable concepts. The shadow beings explained their situation with growing hope. They had been trying to repair the dimensional breach using their own abilities, but the task was beyond their power alone. They needed assistance from beings who understood three-dimensional physics in ways that their energy-based existence could not achieve. In return for this help, they offered to share dimensional science that would revolutionize space travel. They could teach the galaxy how to create stable wormholes, how to travel between dimensions safely, and how to harvest energy directly from space-time itself. "This knowledge could change everything," whispered the Gray Collective representative. "Faster than light travel that does not require massive engines, energy sources that never run out, access to resources from multiple dimensions." "The benefits are clear," agreed the Crystalline Hive representative. "But what do they need from us?" The answer was surprisingly simple. The wandering folk needed raw materials and precise engineering that only three-dimensional beings could provide. They could manipulate energy and space-time, but they could not create the complex mechanical devices needed to stabilize a dimensional rift. "We build the tools," Sumi summarized. "They provide the power and knowledge to use them. Together, we repair the breach and send them home." "And if something goes wrong?" asked Commander Thexmore. One adult void entities responded to his question directly, its voice translated through Bada's complex sonar interpretation. "Then we all remain lost together," was the reply. "But hope shared is stronger than fear endured, alone." The joint construction project began immediately. Human engineering teams worked alongside Velkin metallurgists and Gray Collective technicians to create devices based on wandering folk specifications. Crystalline Hive representatives provided computing power while Traitor Coalition members coordinated resource logistic. 6 weeks after the successful closure of the Void Breach, Captain Lee Sumi stood once again before the Galactic Council. But this time, everything was different. The same conference hall that had once echoed with dismissive laughter now held representatives from 14 species, all listening with genuine respect. Ambassador Pak Do-hyun smiled as he watched the transformation. The elderly diplomat had lived through many historic moments, but nothing compared to witnessing the galaxy's first successful contact with interdimensional beings. "The dimensional stabilizer continues to function perfectly," reported Dr. Kim, Ji-won to the assembled delegates. Her wolf companion Nala lay beside the podium, no longer an object of curiosity, but a respected member of the diplomatic team. "The wandering folk have successfully returned to their home dimension, and the breach has been permanently sealed." Commander Thexmore, who had once dismissed humans as primitive, now spoke with obvious admiration in his voice. "The Velkin Empire formally acknowledges that human methods succeeded where our technology failed," he announced. "We request continued cooperation in developing the dimensional science shared by the wandering folk. Similar requests came from every species represented. In the council, the Gray Collective wanted to understand how animal intuition could supplement artificial intelligence. The crystalline hive sought to learn about individual cooperation within collective goals. Even the isolated mechanic union had sent observers to study human-animal partnerships. The knowledge given to us by the wandering folk will benefit everyone, said Sumi as she activated her presentation display. Stable wormhole technology will make travel between star systems as simple as crossing a room. Dimensional energy harvesting will provide unlimited clean power for all our worlds. But this is not the most important thing we have learned, added Commander Yoon Ha-jin as he joined her at the podium. His bear companion Dubu walked beside him with calm dignity. The real discovery is that cooperation achieves what control cannot. The presentation that followed was unlike any in galactic history. Instead of showing military strength or technological superiority, it demonstrated the power of partnership and mutual respect. Images appeared showing the joint construction project that had sealed the void breach. Vulcan engineers worked alongside human technicians, while eagles provided aerial reconnaissance and bears assisted with heavy lifting. Gray Collective AI units learned to interpret animal behavior patterns. Crystalline hive members discovered how individual creativity could strengthen collective efforts. Every species contributed something essential, Ha-jin explained. But the project succeeded because we learned to trust each other rather than trying to dominate. Dr. Lee Soman stepped forward to address the council. Her years of studying animal behavior had prepared her for this moment when two galaxies would learn from Earth's oldest partnerships. For thousands of years, humans believed that intelligence meant controlling nature, she said. We built walls to keep out wild animals. We created weapons to hunt predators. We saw every other species as either a resource to exploit or a threat to eliminate. The alien delegates listened with growing interest. This described exactly how most of their own species had developed. But some humans chose a different path, Soman continued. They learned to read animal body language, to understand different forms of intelligence, to build partnerships based on mutual benefit rather than dominance. She gestured to Bahram, who had been sitting quietly beside Sumi throughout the presentation. The massive tiger stood and walked over to the Vulcan commander's position. Without hesitation, Thexmore extended his clawed hand to greet the great cat. 6 weeks ago, I feared this creature, admitted the Vulcan commander as Bahram touched his paw gently to the alien's hand. Today, I understand that my fear came from ignorance, not danger. This is the lesson the wandering folk taught us, said Sumi. Different does not mean dangerous. Unknown does not mean enemy. Sometimes the most powerful allies come from the most unexpected places. The presentation continued with demonstrations of human-animal cooperation that had saved the galaxy. Dolphins translating interdimensional communication. Wolves detecting energy patterns that instruments missed. Eagles navigating through dimensional storms. Bears operating complex machinery with surprising delicacy. We wish to establish formal cultural exchange programs, announced the Gray Collective representative. Our artificial intelligence could benefit from understanding organic intuition and instinctive decision-making. The crystalline hive requests, teachers, chimed their harmonic voice. We want to learn how individual creativity can strengthen collective goals without breaking unity. The Vulcan Empire proposes joint military exercises, said Commander Thexmore, but exercises focused on rescue and protection rather than conquest and destruction. Request after request poured in from species across the galaxy. Everyone wanted to understand the partnership principles that had achieved the impossible. But the most surprising request came from an unexpected source. The wandering folk have sent a message through the dimensional communicator, reported Park Yuna as she entered the conference hall with her dolphin companion Bada swimming in a mobile tank beside her. What do they say? Asked Ambassador Park Yuna, translated Bada's complex sonar interpretation of the interdimensional transmission. They want to establish permanent diplomatic relations between our galaxy and their dimensional realm, she announced. They are offering to share advanced science and dimensional travel technology in exchange for continued cooperation and friendship. The implications were staggering. Access to other dimensions meant unlimited resources, new forms of energy, and contact with civilizations beyond imagination. "What do they require from us?" asked the Trader Coalition representative. "They want humans to serve as intermediaries," Yuna replied. "They believe that human-animal partnerships demonstrate the kind of cooperative spirit needed for interdimensional relations. They trust us because we learn to trust our animal companions," Sumi explained. In their view, any species that can build genuine partnerships with other Earth beings can be trusted to build partnerships across dimensional boundaries. The vote to accept the Wandering Folk's proposal was unanimous. For the first time in galactic history, all species agreed completely on a major decision. As the formal session concluded, something remarkable happened. Delegates from different species began approaching the human-animal teams directly. They wanted to touch and interact with creatures they had once feared or dismissed. The Gray Collective representative knelt down to examine Nala's enhanced senses. The crystalline hive member harmonized with Hanol's flight patterns. Even the Mechanic Union observer asked detailed questions about how Dubu had learned to operate complex machinery. "They are not afraid anymore," observed Dr. Soman as she watched aliens and animals interact peacefully throughout the conference hall. "Fear was never the real problem," replied Sumi. "The problem was the belief that different meant inferior." As delegates began to leave the conference hall, Bahram walked over to the center of the room where representatives from all species had gathered. The great tiger sat down and looked around at the assembled beings with calm amber eyes. One by one, delegates from every species approached the tiger. Some reached out to touch his fur. Others simply stood nearby, showing respect for the creature that had helped save their worlds. The Velkan commander was the last to approach. He knelt down in front of Bahram and spoke in his own language before. The translators could interpret his words. "He says thank you," translated the linguistic computer. "Thank you for teaching us that strength shared is greater than strength hoarded." Bahram's response was simple. The tiger leaned forward and gently touched his nose to the alien's forehead. It was a gesture of acceptance and friendship that needed no translation. As the conference hall finally emptied, Captain Sumi stood alone, with her tiger companion beside the great windows that looked out over the galactic capital. Ships from dozens of species moved through space in peaceful cooperation. Construction projects were beginning that would use both dimensional science and traditional engineering. Cultural exchange programs were being planned that would change both galaxies forever. "We did it, old friend," she said quietly, her hand resting on Bahram's massive head. "We showed them that cooperation is stronger than conquest." The tiger's purr was a deep rumble that seemed to express satisfaction with their accomplishments. Outside the windows, the first interdimensional transport ship was taking shape in the construction yards. It would carry the first galactic ambassadors to the Wandering Folk's home dimension. The crew would include humans and their animal partners, serving as living examples of the cooperation that had made everything possible. In the distance, a new star appeared in the sky. It was not actually a star, but a dimensional beacon established by the Wandering Folk. It would guide travelers between realities and serve as a permanent symbol of friendship between two very different forms of life. The galaxy had learned that the wildest animals did not defy control because they were savage or stupid. They defied control because they understood something that advanced civilizations had forgotten. True strength came not from dominating others, but from choosing to work together. True intelligence meant recognizing that every being had something valuable to contribute. True progress required the wisdom to build bridges instead of walls. As Sumi and Bahram watched the interdimensional beacon pulse with welcoming light, they knew that this was only the beginning. The galaxy had taken its first steps toward a larger universe where cooperation would open doors that conquest never could. The wildest animals had always known this truth. Now, finally, the rest of the galaxy was beginning to understand. In the end, the greatest discovery was not dimensional science or unlimited energy or faster-than-light travel. The greatest discovery was that partnership, freely chosen and mutually respected, could achieve miracles that force never could. And it had all started with a tiger who nudged open a door and waited patiently for a signal from his trusted human companion.